Hey, it's a real gift just to be with you again today. Each day is a gift. You know, today my wife Kathy is taking part in our annual cookie bake off, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of cookies. It's not only our large family, but her extended family, and she's one of 10 children, 8 girls. So, cookies. We have to really ration them around here if we want to stay in shape. But anyway, there are so many Christmas events, and large and small, and of course, times of worship and preparation for the season. And it's exciting, but I know that a lot of people, especially a lot of women who really care, can feel burned out. I think everybody at times can feel a mixture of in this season joy and kind of wistful nostalgia about the past, a sense of mystery and awe about what we celebrate, the birth of Jesus, and then also just a feeling of being fried, and especially those who give from the heart and don't count. They just keep giving. They say yes. I just feel as if I should address that and describe to you how Kathy handled it. I'm not an expert on the subject, but I did go to the University of Kathy for nearly half a century. I've This is our 47th Christmas married as man and wife. We knew each other. What was it for? We all in '73. So the Christmas of '73 would have been our first Christmas together, as just friends, and then the Christmas of '74 as friends, and the Christmas of '75 as hey, we know we're right for each other. The Christmas of '76 the same way. The Christmas of '77, we're kind of slow pokes, aren't we? The Christmas of '78 we were engaged, and then we became married in '79. So the Christmas of 1979 was our first. Just a little fun fact. Do you know that I went out and bought our first Christmas tree and planted it in the ground? It was a small pine, a white pine. I planted it in our yard, in our old family homestead. It's still there nearly 50 years later. It has 2 or 3 trunks branching out. I don't know. I fantasized at times, what would it cost? And is it ever possible? Let's say we had a lot of money. We don't. We just make it day by day. But to have that moved out here to our land, just what a treasure for the family, the multifamily. But I don't think you can move a 50-foot pine. I mean, I guess they can in Hollywood. I know in preparation for It's a Wonderful Life, Bedford Falls was basically constructed just from scratch in many ways. And they brought in some giant trees, I understand. I've read up a lot about these movies, and they lined Main Street with these big, tall trees. So I know that somewhere there is the equipment. But anyway, I don't know how I got off the tangent, because I want to talk to you about Kathy, cookies, presents, decorations, burnout, and how to avoid that feeling within yourself of it's anything but peace on earth and goodwill to men. And if women strive too much, they can look around and say everyone else is being a slowpoke. Hey, come on, we got to get ready for Christmas. Come on, joy to the world. And the family's kind of on red alert. And if mom ain't happy, ain't no one happy. So we want to keep a balance. And Kathy, I have to hand it to her. She is one of her biggest traits is balance. She's very wise. And one thing she said early on when I first met her in '73 is that when she was young, she had a real insight that she should pray for wisdom. If I could ask you for anything, it would be wisdom. And all of her life, she has been very wise. She did very well in school. She just has a lot of common sense, horse sense, and knows the difference. If something starts tilting too much, you know how even among Christians, things can go to extremes. They can swing one way or the other. And she and I have always tried to keep ourselves in our marriage and then the family and then our ministry very much based on things, to focus on the things that remain. I once heard a statement, strengthen the things that remain. Somebody once who was very ill at a hospital, sorry, I covered the screen there, said he felt as he was in the hospital that God was speaking to him, and later he realized it was an angel. Strengthen the things that remain. Strengthen the things that remain. So we try to major in our family on the things that last, and we sort of you got to pick your battles at a time like this. You might not be able to respond and go to every event or stay 6 hours, although that's one of the things Kathy and I, when it's our family, things tend to go long. Like just last night, we had a Christmas event in one of my sons and his wife and their baby, and other members of our family were here, and we knew we had to do something when we came back too. So we went there. We were one of the first ones there so that we could hopefully spend an hour or two. We wound up spending a long, maybe it always goes over because we're crazy about our kids and the grandkids. I was walking around with 3 different grandkids. The other one, I would have gladly done so, but he was, I think, sleeping by that time. They're all babies. And so you know you're busy when you wish you had a 30-hour day or a 40-hour day. So what we have learned to do, and that's why I'm making this little conversation with you. And by the way, you might think, well, what does he know? It's us women who get frazzled around Christmas time. But the men get affected if the wife is frazzled, or even if a mother is frazzled, or even if it is in a family situation. You don't want to be around someone who's, kind of like gritting through the teeth, let's make this the best Christmas ever. You just want to you want to realize the essence of the season. I have found one thing that you can do. Sure, under scheduling is a great practical, tip. And we try to, over decades, Kathy and I say, now let's try to under schedule. Let's leave some wiggle room. Let's leave some airspace. As the contractor who helped us build our house said, he did the essentials, but we really had to, like many families, we had to do it with sweat equity. But he gave us some advice, and he said, when you budget for your house, add 15% to your budget, because that's human nature. There's always cost overrun, unexpected things. I have found that to be true with schedules. 15% might be too small. If you have all of these ideas of what can fit in a day, a week, a month, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. A lot of this is a challenge that can strike Christians, because it's not like a bad thing to celebrate Jesus' birth, to be around people, to not want to miss anything. And it can be really tough, though, for those who are leaders in these departments, or like Mom and my daughter, Mary Elizabeth. They work hard. I mean, everything around here is mega-sized. They made 49 pies. They led the effort to make 49 pies. Mary Elizabeth and my mom. There was a little chip in by others, but really they shoulder the responsibility. That was for Thanksgiving, and some of them they give away to people in need, who might need them, or shut in or something like that. But they have learned. What I'm getting at is, Kathy has found a knack of not being rushed, even when she's working very swiftly, and that's the key. And I tend to do that too, because we both learned that there are ways to achieve a lot but relax and have a twinkle in your eye and still have love. Because when like, for example, when I do these talks with you, I end up right before the talk and right afterwards, I'm just stacking things very, very efficiently, but I try never to lose my cool. I try to underreact. So in that sense, I think under scheduling, one thing you could do to take away stress in all seasons, but around Christmas, is don't overschedule. Don't book yourself for too many events. But on the other hand, I found you can't avoid that if you're a person who's following the Spirit, because things will come up. Some out of the blue. For example, you might underschedule and leave that little 15% wiggle room for life to happen, and something really big happens. It knocks you out for a week. For example, somebody really needs you, or somebody gets maybe you're suddenly called to help somebody in the family. You're called to do this, or this came up, or suddenly you have a car breakdown and you spend 4 hours at the car service. Things can happen, or you have a medical appointment and you think, well, that's a 10 o'clock appointment. I should be back by noon. You wind up waiting an hour in the waiting room, and then somehow something happens on the way home. You had to pick up something. Somebody calls you, could you pick this up? And before long, it's getting dark. In this day and age, it's getting dark almost right after you get up, it seems like. I mean, when I say day and age, this time of year. And we combat that by getting up earlier if we can, and also by just welcoming the long, quiet evenings of December and January, February. But I just wanted to kind of give testimony as to how Kathy handles being a mom of 14, homeschooling. And I'm not holding her up as superwoman. She's just a 5'4" gal, she's spunky as can be, but very loving, not spunky in a sense of being pushy or annoying, just sweet, and just decided a long time ago, I want to live for loving God and others, and I want to keep it simple. And I put my family first. And she is able to be extremely busy without being frazzled. So that's the key. If you can, number one thing to do is not overschedule or put yourself out of priority. You need to come away like we're doing in these talks and leave time. Just leave time for you and God. Don't consider that to be wasting. If you need to, like, sit like Kathy in the morning when she's getting ready, putting on makeup or whatever, she'll also have a prayer time. It's usually very quiet there. And she has the bathroom door. She can lock the door, and it's a little bit like being in a convent or in a monastery or a chapel. That's her area. I heard years ago that one of the great evangelists, his mother had 11, 12 kids, and I don't know which one. I don't want to say the wrong person, if it was Wesley or somebody. But anyway, it used to throw a blanket or a towel over her head in the middle of the day with all the kids around. That was her going into a secret closet with God. But I just think we need a balance between. I remember when we used to give something called the Life in the Spirit seminars. And by the way, I'd like to host some here where people who even out of town can make a little trip of it and come in for a Saturday or even a part of a Sunday and have a little Life in the Spirit seminar and have a little vacation. We've done that in the past. We might consider doing that in the future if the demand is big. But one of the teachings we would have there, practical horse sense, would be a cross representing a balanced life. And as I recall, now I haven't seen the handbook that we used, but it's basically you want to have you want to have serving others. You want to have basically you want to have service, practical. Which I should have started with God. The root of it is God. Like the bottom part of the cross might be like a tree trunk soaking nutrients from the ground and the rain. We need that so that the rest of the cross that can go. And then you also have community, going off into community, celebrating with others. Then you have evangelization. You have just reaching out, and then you have practical service. And I can't remember if I've said those all exactly right, but if somebody gets too off in just one part of the cross, it's imbalanced. If you're all heavenly minded but no earthly good, that doesn't help. If you're frazzled and you're like Martha in the Mary Martha story in the gospel, you're a terror. You're like a tornado. Nobody wants to cross you or get in your way. If you're coming across the kitchen and you think people aren't helping you, you just everybody wants to hide and shrink, and that can control people. And so I know one thing Kathy and I learned is never try to control people, and it's subtle. Like it's a delicate balance, because how can you lead people without making them feel controlled? It's a delicate balance, because you don't want to become too meek, and especially as a dad and a father, because I have a real thing about not being controlling somebody. I have 14 adult children, very smart, very capable. I have wonderfully brilliant, wonderful daughters-in-law. They're all home-based. They could be doing a lot of things with their brains and their skills, but they're putting them in toward the family. And I can often see things. I often will observe, as the late Yogi Berra, the Yankees catcher, used to say, you can observe a lot just by watching. And so I would notice things, and I always want to know, should I tell somebody, or can I help? Could I save them a few decades or do it, let everybody find out for themselves? And I don't want to. So I just have a breezy, easy, like I kind of go by the Spirit, just stay real open. And the natural things that present themselves, I just, in fact, one just last night, because we're really close. We, over the years, always talked frankly and talked just like this in our family. So I can just chat with the guys and the girls. We have a family-wide, extended family-wide, like group, like a message area where we can. Like the other day, one of my daughters-in-law needed prayer, and so she can post that on there, and she was not feeling good in a certain area, and so we can all pray for her, or we can pray for this baby, or we can pray for. It's like an instant, it's like a pretty large community now when you think of 16 aunts and the daughters-in-law and their families, and so it's just really what I'm getting at is I try to lead by inspiration rather than by controlling. Because you don't want to, like, let's say you are the mother, the grandmother, or you're the person at church who has to as some people say, it's really hard to herd cats. It's really hard to herd cats because they're not, they don't follow. Basically it's they say like Congress trying to get them to, get them organized to vote on the same thing as like herding cats. So I'd say it's like nailing Jello to the wall. I have found that you have to provide leadership, but it has to be based on something sustainable and honest, not just your nervousness or your panic, but it has to be a calm, inspirational, and a very simple goal that you can pick 2 or 3 things to stand for. Like that's one good thing in our family. We don't die on the small hills. We basically, with anything, it's like loving God with all of our heart, having integrity and purity of heart, loving everybody else with the same intensity, and putting family first, but also donating the rest to the world. And that's what I try to do in these streams. And in a sense, being mindful of the orphan and the widow. And we know that many of you have written and you are in very lonely situations. Maybe it's Christmas season, but every Christmas season around this time, I started getting messages from people in our community who, going back years, who come up with a need. And I had 3 of them in the last 3 of you in the last 10 days, maybe 4 who are from years and years of being in this kind of video community. And I just really appreciate hearing from you. It's just like no time passed. People feel very close, almost like family in this community. And I never feel bashful about messaging. And I guess I'm trying to say is that what we try to do here is, if your anchor is right, if you get the right, if you're, and this is going to lead to Christmas, some practical things that Kathy does at Christmas time. Everything we do nothing is like celebrating the season and loving the kids and loving the grandkids and making it all fun has to come from a root cause of loving God and really knowing what the season is about and having a balance between the holy, reverent, awesome belief in the atmosphere of holiness and the sheer fun and the warmth of being together and making it fun for kids. Kathy labored so long. She did this she made ornaments for the 4 grandkids, and we have 3 more on the way. And they're just the most exquisitely beautiful, things that you've ever seen. And I just take my hat off to her. She is just so patient and kind, and family is everything to her. Something else I had to tell you about her that she has done for Christmas. We didn't have much of a money budget, and even now don't. But she learned to decorate with very beautiful, simple things. Branches of pine trees, pine cones. I love pine trees and pine cones. Just very beautiful little things. Even at our old fixer-upper house that we lived in for about half of our marriage. We lived in the old homestead that was like the one they had on It's a Wonderful Life. An old frame fixer-upper. It had 4 levels though, and we were able to go from being newlyweds when we moved in 79 to a family of 16 when we moved out, 22 Christmases ago. So we were able to fix it up and gradually expanded, even had room for our business. We made offices out of some of the bedrooms. And to make a long story short, she made beautiful Christmases, even though we were poor. We bought that tree, planted it in the ground after it was our Christmas tree. We did that for our first couple of Christmases. And today now, we put up 4 Christmas trees in the house, and that way there are a lot of like places in the house where you can encounter a beautiful, especially if the lights are dimmed, a beautiful atmosphere that makes you think of Jesus. It makes you think of the singing angels in Bethlehem. It makes you think of the manger scene. And we try to have gentle instrumental Christmas music going in the house. There's a smell of baking cookies. So she has learned and my daughter Mary Elizabeth, by having to think big for a big family, that making a batch of cookies making 100 cookies isn't much different from doing 25 cookies, or 300 isn't much different from 100, because once you're in a mode and, it's fun, and somebody might join you and dropping the cookies on the sheet, the cookie sheet. And so it's just, they've learned to, whatever we stretch ourselves to, whatever God calls us to, we'll stretch ourselves to. And I just wanted to encourage everybody if you're too much on the passive side, hey,
get out there. You could make things happen. You can make some people around you very happy. And if you're frantic and you're one of the ones who packs everything, you're kind of tightly wired, and the Christmas season is it's just a series, a blur of commitments and parties and meetings. If you're in a ministry situation or a church, if you're for others, it's a very lonely time, and it could be, in your case, you just need to reach out, and ministries like ours, you can message and make a connection. But I just wanted to address that the way this might just inform us all how to approach this Christmas. I would just want to praise God that in our country, and I know we have listeners in other countries, but in our country, a very imperfect country, founded with imperfections and still very imperfect, to realize we're entering our 250th birthday right after the Christmas season. We ought to get down on our knees and just thank God and just always have a thankful heart, because many countries with such an idealistic belief that the government will be of the people, by the people, and for the people, that it won't be a dictatorship, that anyone can rise and become anything. God is not a respecter of persons. In our country's constitution, even though sadly it has the chapter of slavery, isn't a respecter of persons, and that's why people who kind of use are hard workers and identify the opportunities, and they're not self-pitying and not lazy, can rise and do anything. There are all sorts of rags to riches stories, and I would just celebrate that with all the problems we have in this country, that we are more than ever able to rejoice, say Merry Christmas. It's there's a tipping point where our country could be watered down to where there isn't a Christian atmosphere anymore in general, but yet I can still sense, maybe I'm an optimist, that it's there. A lot of people sadly aren't living it, but they were raised. So many people know the Bible stories. They know that Jesus died for them. They know that Christmas is the time of Jesus being born. That has gone into our literature, into our Christmas songs, into our Christmas movies, the older ones before before all the liberalism took over Hollywood. But during the golden age, when they had a Hollywood code for 30 years. All movies between about the 30s and the 60s, early 60s, had to basically be honoring toward God, family, country, marriage. Women had to be honored. They weren't treated. A woman was worth pursuing. A man would not expect a woman to live with him unless he made a commitment to her, and the value of women was high. And if you'll see that in the older movies. Some people say, oh, that's corny. Those were the old days. It never was true. No, I mean, we're noble. We're wonderfully and fearfully made. Why shouldn't we have those traits? God made us. He made us as the crown of creation. We shouldn't be, lowering our standards. Women should be on a pedestal. Now, women, once they're on a pedestal, need to also be servants. But it's a beautiful blend. If everybody would take the lowest chair, they would get exalted by God and by others too. So I guess when I talk about the Christmas season, try to hit a balance. Can I give you advice? Try to hit a balance between just doing it all with human energy and well, first of all, do it for God. I mean, I assume I'm talking to people who aren't. Christmas isn't just going off and getting drunk and just going off to party after party and just an aimless life, gluttonous life, and you're just a pleasure seeker and there's nothing much in your life. And, you're going to go there to the gatherings and maybe fight with family members you don't get along with. I'm talking about people here. I think you're a pretty good pretty good group here. So I'm kind of starting with the obvious, that you're basically people who want to follow God, want to follow his word, that you see the meaning of Christmas, and the heartbeat of what I'm trying to say. And I thought when I started talking, I'd give a little bit more practical advice on what Kathy does preparing for Christmas. Probably we're going to do another one on that. Maybe Paul, my oldest son, will interview us. In fact, we have some shows like that coming up where he'll interview us and ask us certain questions. We have, I should have said this at the beginning, but it really helps if anybody listens to these to the end. It really helps the algorithm, and it allows more. It goes out to more because the algorithm if people watch it daily or whenever I do them, as frequently as I do them, and watch them completely, the algorithm says, oh, let's send this to more people. So it's like the idea of give and you shall receive. The more you give, the more you should will receive. So I appreciate that for those who are helping me try to grow this channel. It's such a baby channel right now. We've only been doing it for about a year. We don't have a budget for advertising, so we haven't told anybody about it. I haven't even told a lot of people who listen to videos on other platforms like Facebook. We haven't had a way to reach all of them. And so just word of mouth. And maybe you can help me by planting new seeds and telling people if you think this is a good resource for them. But just to go back to what Kathy does for Christmas, she helped put up 4 trees. I have one in my office. It's medium sized. It's in a dormer that looks over a farm field. And Nathan usually puts that up, one of my sons. He's married now with a child, but he still wanted to do it for tradition, at least put up the tree. And then Kathy came in later to my office and put up the lights. That's a simple tree. I don't have any ornaments on it, but it's in a dormer. It's the first window that people see when they come down our country road. Then she and Mary Elizabeth helped to decorate 2 other big trees that we have in the main foyer of the house. And then one is in a big room that is sort of a combination. Well, we call it the family room, but it's just a big room that we use for many purposes, like showers. It was going to be a double garage, and we just decided people space is more important. So we've never had a garage in all of our 47 years of marriage. We figured the cars can stay outside. We need more people space. So we turned that into a nice big room, 24 by 32. We have a lot of the baby showers, wedding showers in there. And we used to have church services in there. Now those moved to the living room. And so there are 2 big trees up. We might put up a 4th, counting the one in my office is 1, the 2 big ones downstairs. We might want to put one up in the basement or in because our basement is finished and it's office space, and we have a little gym down there. So Kathy, she does it beautifully, because in all the travels we've made, we've been to all the continental states. We haven't been, in many of the provinces. In fact, this last fall went to the Maritime provinces in Canada, and she picked up some Christmas things there, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick. And so to make a long story short, when we're on these trips, these RV trips, she has a rule. I'm only going to buy something if I'm in love with it and I know exactly where it's going to go in the house. So over the years, she has picked up some things, like up in Door County, Wisconsin, which is like a bit of Maine feeling right here in the Midwest, north of us. She went to a Christmas store and picked up a beautiful lantern that had like falling snow and redbirds inside of a white lantern. It's maybe 7 inches, 8 inches tall, maybe 8 inches tall and about this wide. You can look through the glass. One of the babies gets mesmerized. I'm sure they all would if I showed it to them. And one of our grandkids. And she also, while up there, got some stained glass autumn leaves that we put out for Thanksgiving. So she is very, very selective. She doesn't just buy junk. And she's very selective, and she knows exactly where this should go, almost as if God is leading her down the aisles. And we go through Amish country many times, Mennonite country, the craft stores. And in the past, she would pick up like little quilts, like these runners that go on the table or on a wall. And then she learned to make these things. Oh, she does so fantastically. She makes blankets and helps give them to the granddaughters and grandson, my sons. And also, she made some smaller blankets that are like, I don't know how big they are. Maybe they're 5 feet by maybe 3.5. They're like mini blankets, and if you're sitting on a couch watching TV or something, or just whatever, you can cover yourself up with those, and they're quilted. So it's really a delight to know that after all these years of raising the kids and going through the 20 pregnancies, 14 births, homeschooling, that she can steal away. Sometimes she says, I haven't had a chance to sew in a month, but if she has a little opportunity, she'll go in there. And we were able to get her some nice sewing machines to replace the one I got her one for her honeymoon. Practical gift that, she really, it didn't last, 47 years, but now she has some better ones that she can use. And she loves to sew, and from our travels, we just learned, she kind of learned how to decorate in a very simple, kind of, you could say, country way. We're not country folks, but we always liked nature, loved nature. And we moved out to this land we started building about 23 years ago. And so we basically have lived out of our 47 years of marriage, almost exactly half and half, not quite. We figured it out the other day. I think it was 8,800 days at the old place, 8,000 days here. And since moving out to the country, she's developed a real taste for, see, our house is sort of a simple country farmhouse look. We couldn't have very many bells and whistles when we built it. We needed it for space, for a big family. We had to keep it simple. And so when we bought furniture over the years, when we could afford it, we would come home from Amish country in upstate Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, and get pieces of furniture, pine furniture, in these Amish shops, or sometimes from the area of the Finger Lakes too, the Mennonite shops. And gradually, we just got a lot of pine furniture. It's not very expensive. It does dent. It's softwood, but it's not. Hey, if your house exists for people and you're not trying to have it be like a museum where you're afraid to have people do anything, breathe, it's very practical and serviceable. Now, a few years ago, one of our good friends, a father of 12, a Mennonite family in upstate New York, personally made her a sewing machine cabinet out of oak. And I think some of the trees might have been from his own property. If not, they're from nearby, up there in the Penn Yan, New York area. Does anybody know where that is? Near Canandaigua Lake, near Keuka Lake. But I just wanted to say that in our family, it doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take, I know it sounds like a corny truth, but it doesn't, you don't find money in riches. You find money in loving God, loving people, loving family, and the simple pleasures of life. And it's funny, so many people know that, and yet you get caught up in the frenzy of it. In fact, Kathy said to me, I didn't know this. Let me know if you notice, but sometimes you have to wait a long time in line at these different stores. She goes out and of course you can order a lot of things now to be delivered, but every once in a while she has to go in person and see. And I'm always shocked by, there seems to be a hard time with people getting a lot of qualified sales people, and sometimes there's a lot of turnover. So you don't get the service that you used to have maybe 25 years ago. So, maybe in those days, things were different. But she is so patient. She doesn't yell or try to fight people or tackle them if they accidentally go in line ahead of her. And so she's never involved in a fracas or, angry driving or anything like this. I have to hand it to her. Her decision to live wisely has really carried her through all these years. She doesn't have a short fuse. And we both try to live with a long range look at things, because your reactions, what you're developing now is going to be your reality later. So you're kind of making your bed that you're going to sleep in, that everybody else is going to sleep in. So you don't want to enter the season of, and today as I film, we're 19 days from Christmas. We just want to create a balance and let the heaviest part of your schedule be to realize, and I'm just speaking to myself when I say this, to realize how awesome it is just to be alive for another day. If you have people around you whom you love, you have a family, to thank God for them, try to lift them up, try to get like the cares of this world out of the way, live a simple life, identify a few things that are important, maybe to attend or to decorate. Don't go crazy with thinking about gifts that, everything isn't quantitative. And sometimes people just love the most simple gifts, the most beautiful ones, and the most, warm ones. I can think of things that Kathy really appreciates. It might not be fancy, but to her it means a lot. I've just, I had no idea that I'd be talking about Christmas here, because, my job isn't to do the wrapping of the presents, to go shopping and all those things. I'm just going to hit the engine here. It's a little cold. But I feel as if I do know a lot of our followers here, a lot of our friends here are ladies. We have a ratio, at least probably 1-to-4 ratio. Probably 80% are going to be moms, grandmas, aunts, uncles, not uncles, but there are men who listen to this. And also when I talk and a lot of ladies are listening, their adjustments or their decisions to get closer to God, to have more of the fruit of the Spirit, will affect all the men in their circle, in their orbit. So I'm trying to, women are sort of the heartbeat of a home, of anything really. And so we need to, it's a beautiful ministry. They always say the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And I'd say that just as a man, I would say one of the most hospitable feelings is to be around a woman who loves God, or kind of like the old thing of a grandma on a farm making soup for you and having all the time in the world to just, like, she's got time for you. She's create time, an atmosphere of time and availability to the men around you, and realize that all they want is your presence. The same for dads. I try to make myself, and have over these years, very available to the kids. That's why I purposely went into a profession which I didn't really like that much, but I knew God was calling me into it. I was gifted. I was good with words. I had written some books in the late 70s, early 80s, of interviewing major league athletes and major league Olympic athletes and others, and it was starting to catch on where I was being asked by the publishing house to do other books for them, and I could have had a career in writing. It doesn't pay a lot evangelizing through books, but I feel as if I needed to make more money for a large family. So going into court reporting, I was still involved words. I got paid by the word, and so to this day, my sons do that. In fact, tomorrow is the 40th anniversary. December 7th, it'll be the 40th anniversary of the first job I took as a court reporter. And we've been doing it ever since. And it's sort of a humble profession for men. It's not very, it could seem like you're just sitting there taking down notes. And, you got to have a strong self-image as a man to realize, hey, this isn't like something where, it's your typical masculine, but it pays well. And especially if you can crank out, you get paid by the page. So if you can have accurate notes and the computer transcribes it, you clean it up, and you're good at vocabulary and context, and you can whisk through it and give them that transcript like a book, then you get paid by the page. So, and we found our manliness in other things, from your identity in God and just sports and working and developing this land, knocking down trees and making roads, and having a family softball team, and all the guys are just strong and strapping. So we, every once in a while, God will ask a man, if you're secure in your manhood, you can be tender. You don't have to be telling people every 5 minutes, And so I hope this Christmas will be the best that this little community has had. It's the 1-year anniversary of the Safe at Home channel. I thank you for being part of this channel. I think let me cover it up for a minute. I had to look at the audio. I'm thinking by this time next year, we're going to have a lot of new friends here. And that's one of my most thrilling motivations for doing this, because I love corresponding with you all, hearing from different states or countries when I receive these messages through Messenger usually. And what I want to do is there's so many wonderful people, but sometimes they need each other, and I'll know each one of them through the messengers. It's like, but I don't, it's kind of like I guess you could say, I'm not holding myself out to be a doctor, but in a sense, I am assisting the great physician when I make these videos. So let's say I'm a doctor's assistant. Well, instead of just talking to this one about it and this one about it, I could put you into contact with each other in some sort of like enclosed community, like a message area. So I'm kind of thinking about that. We had that once a long time ago, like 20 years, but it would be a way in which some of the mature people here could form a kind of a family, a sense of family, and find out, hey, I'm not alone. Somebody else is going through this. So pray for me as I consider those ideas. Maybe we'll have to grow just a bit more before that happens. Please pray that God will help us grow too. We aren't actively out there trying to campaign to get it to grow. We could go on various TV shows or try to publicize it, but I'm almost too busy doing it. That that the media has come to us over the last 20 years and done many stories, some of them national, TLC, Inside Edition, just about the dynamic of a big family like this. And I just don't have time to go out and stir them up. But probably we could do stories. I wouldn't mind telling people about the family and about what we're doing here with these videos. So I think a season like that is coming. Also, I would like to interview for the Safe at Home channel, interview some other hear testimonies of people or other content makers whose gift is in a different area than mine, and give you more of a wider selection on your plate, so to speak. So look for that to be developing, some interviews. I used to do quite a few interviews in the past, and that's dormant now, but you might see me on only one half of the screen in the future, well, on some days, and I'll be talking things over with other people. And that's a way we can all just learn more about God, about the Christian life, and we can be well balanced, and not just talk only about the things that I'm familiar with. Well, it's great to hear from you. Continue to pray and sustain us in prayer. God bless you and your loved ones. Thanks for listening if you did manage it to the end here. Bye now.